Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror comedy from the United States, English language, released in the year 2019, directed by Steven Seddars and Benji Kleiman, and this film is called Snatchers. So Snatchers is about this older teenager who has just had a one-night stand with a boy that she really likes, and she finds out the next day she's pregnant. So she tells her friend says, "Wow, that was really quick, what's going on?" So something weird is happening. And then the weirdness starts to escalate when a few days later she's ready to give birth. So something is horribly wrong, but they don't know what, but then they're terrified when they realise that this main character has given birth to a monster. Now this monster has something to do with the background of the boy she just hooked up with, and so as this monster is spreading terror through the community, the main character and her friend have to get to the bottom of the story and the truth surrounding this man that she hooked up with if they are to stop the spread of terror. So whether or not she can is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Snatchers. Coming into this movie, I was actually enticed by the trailer. I thought the trailer actually made the film look very interesting, but I didn't really expect to like this film. Now when it comes to horror comedies, I'm more into the New Zealand and British horror comedies because I gravitate to the style of humour a lot more than I do to American humour. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying American horror comedies are terrible, but I just don't find them as funny. And there have been a few exceptions with that. I thought that Slither from James Gunn was absolutely brilliant, but there are a lot of other films that I just don't find very funny, and I haven't found very scary. And ultimately with horror comedies, you're alleviating the scares to a level because you're laughing, and so if you don't have a lot of laughter, then it kind of defeats the purpose of a horror comedy, because with a horror comedy, if you're taking yourself lighthearted, you can't really scare an audience as much, unless it's an absolutely brilliant film. I thought Slither was actually quite scary, but and that was very funny, so that was a brilliant horror comedy. But with a lot of horror comedies, as I said, the comedy alleviates the horror to a point where you're not really scared. So if you're not laughing, you're kind of bored because it's not really that scary. And so that's the problem I have with horror comedies from the United States, and that's what I thought the problem would be with Snatchers, is that was I going to laugh? And if I'm not going to laugh, because I wasn't really banking on it being a scary film because it looked very silly, I thought to myself, well, this is going to be a waste of time. But after watching this movie, I will say that it really surprised me. It's a silly film. It's a movie that's not going to last in the memory as one of the brilliant horror comedies out there. It doesn't match the level of Slither, but it's definitely worth 90 minutes of your time, is because this movie was actually funny. I thought the script was actually really witty. I thought it was going to be a stupid sort of teenage horror film. It is a teenage style of horror film, but I thought the comedy elevated itself to a more mature level, which is something I really like. There are some really juvenile jokes, but I thought there were other jokes that actually made me laugh quite consistently. And so it wasn't a movie where it was a giggle here and there. I thought the 90-minute runtime, there was a fluency in the comedy, and the comedy works, and the comedy elevates the film into a very caricature world. This is a very silly world. It's a cartoonish world, and the cartoonish qualities to the movie make it really entertaining. So you've got acting that allows the script to blossom. I thought the main character and her friend, the chemistry was there. It's not really banking on character development as much, but it's a cautionary tale about pregnancy and having and the terror of pregnancy and the fear factor that a parent would have. It's done in a very exaggerated way, but it is a cautionary tale. There are a lot of other horror films that are cautionary tales as far as pregnancy is concerned, and Snatchers is definitely one of them. Is that, alright, first-time parents can be very scared, and in this case, it's scared in a very cartoonish world. So you've got the script, as I said, very, very witty. The acting was actually quite decent. I actually felt like the director and the actors were having a lot of fun, and because they're having a lot of fun and it's very natural, it comes through the screen, and when it grabs the viewer, you go on the journey with them, and it's fun to see what happens. I thought the cartoonish violence was actually really good. There was some very gory moments that I wasn't really prepared for, so I liked that. I liked the monster. The monster looked adorable, but at the same time was very vicious, so that made it funny. And I also liked just the quirky, different atmosphere. It's a very different feel that the movie has. It's very self-aware. It's not taking itself seriously, so it knows exactly what it wants to do, and it has a very strong plan, and it follows that plan from first minute to last minute, and that's why I came away from it surprised at how much I actually liked it. If I have a problem with the film, is that it's a problem that I have with a lot of horror comedies. There is one genre that really takes over, and the genre that takes over in this film is obviously the comedy. So when the comedy is so silly and the world is so silly, you kind of lose all sense of fear, and so it's not not really a horror film as much as it is a straight out comedy. Yes, there are gory moments, yes, there is a monster, but it's done in a way that's so light-hearted that it's not really trying to scare the audience. And so as far as a horror comedy is concerned, it doesn't juggle the genres very well. It is definitely more a comedic film than it is a horror movie, but I always got the sense that it was trying to be a comedic film. And so the self-awareness, it never feels like it's lost. It never feels like it doesn't have any... it doesn't feel like it's losing its identity. It always has the identity, and it strives to actually achieve and execute its ideas, and I think it executes it very well. And so it's not a terribly memorable film, because, as I said, it's far more funny than it is scary, but it's still worth your time. I actually enjoyed this a lot more than I thought. It was not a waste of time, and as a result of that, I am going to recommend Snatchers to anyone out there who is a fan of horror comedies, and I'm going to give this film 3 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.